When Stars Bleed Secrets, the archaeological survey ship Pathfinder drifted silently above the barren surface of Zarian 7, its sensors sweeping across miles of crystalline formations that stretched toward the horizon like frozen lightning. Commander. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck, watching the planet rotate slowly beneath them. Her reflection stared back from the reinforced glass, showing a woman in her 30s with determined eyes and graying temples that spoke of too many difficult decisions. Commander, you need to see this. Dr. Cale Thornwick's voice carried an excitement that made everyone on the bridge turn. The lanky archaeologist had been studying the planet's energy readings for 3 days, and this was the first time he had sounded anything other than frustrated. Sarah walked to his station, where holographic displays showed complex mathematical formulations dancing in the air. The equations meant nothing to her, but the energy signatures they represented were unlike anything in Coalition databases. What am I looking at? Dr. Cale pushed his glasses up his nose, a nervous habit he had never outgrown. These crystalline structures aren't natural formations. They're constructed, Commander, built by someone with technology that predates every known civilization in this galaxy by at least 50,000 years. Zara Nathaniel approached from her scientific workstation, her crystalline body refracting the bridge lights into rainbow patterns across the walls. As one of the Coalition's finest xenogeologists, her opinion carried significant weight. The energy patterns are consistent with quantum architecture, she said, her voice resonating like wind chimes. Whoever built this understood fundamental forces we're still trying to master. Captain Vex Maldorian clicked his mandibles together, a sign of deep concern among his insectoid species. Commander Chen, I must advise caution. Structures this old and this advanced could contain automated defense systems. We should maintain safe distance until we know more. Sarah nodded, appreciating the military advisor's wisdom. But something about the planet below called to her, a feeling she couldn't explain. It was as if the very air around Zarian 7 whispered of home, though she had never been here before in her life. Doctor, is it safe to establish a research station on the surface? Before Cale could answer, every console on the bridge began flashing red. Lieutenant Torres at the communication station called out with barely controlled panic. Commander, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Configuration matches Vorthok Empire battlecruisers. The main view screen shifted to show 5 massive warships materializing in perfect formation. Their black hulls were scarred with the marks of countless battles, and their weapon arrays glowed with barely contained energy. Sarah had fought the Vorthax before, during the border conflicts of 2387. They were aggressive, territorial, and never backed down from a fight. Incoming transmission, Torres announced. It's General Thackus. The screen filled with the reptilian. Features of one of the Empire's most notorious commanders. His scarred snout and burning red eyes had been the last sight many Coalition crews ever saw. Coalition vessel, you are trespassing in Vorthok territory. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Sarah stepped forward, knowing that showing any weakness would invite attack. General Thackus, this system was unclaimed when we arrived. The Galactic Accords give us salvage and research rights to any archaeological discoveries. Thackus bared his fangs in what might have been a smile. The Accords do not apply to Vorthok space, human. You have 1 hour to leave, or we will remove you by force. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Sarah looked at her mixed crew of humans and Coalition allies, seeing the same determination in their faces that she felt in her heart. All hands to battle stations. Torres, send a priority message to Coalition Command. Tell them we've found something important, and we're not leaving without a fight. As the crew prepared for battle, Dr. Thornwick continued his analysis of the surface readings. His equipment had detected something new in the moments following the Vorthok arrival. The crystalline structures were responding to the presence of so many ships, their energy output increasing exponentially. Commander, I'm reading massive power fluctuations from the planet's surface. It's almost as if the structures are waking. Up, Kale's voice was barely a whisper, but everyone heard him clearly. The planet below began to change. What had appeared to be simple crystal formations started to glow with inner light, creating patterns that were clearly artificial. The largest structure, a spire that reached nearly 10 kilometers into the atmosphere, pulsed with rhythmic energy that reminded Sarah of a heartbeat. Zara moved to her instruments, her crystalline fingers dancing across the controls with inhuman speed. The quantum signatures are shifting. Something is emerging from deep beneath the surface. Commander, I believe we may have awakened something that has been sleeping for a very long time. Captain Maldorian's compound eyes reflected the growing light from the planet. Whatever it is, the Vortex are reacting to it as well. Their ships are moving into attack formation. On the tactical display, the 5 Empire warships had arranged themselves in a predatory semicircle, their weapons trained on both the Pathfinder and the glowing surface below. General Thackus clearly intended to claim whatever was awakening for the Empire. Regardless of Coalition presence, suddenly the bridge filled with a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was not heard through the communication system, but felt directly in the minds of every person aboard the ship. The voice was human, but ancient beyond measure, carrying the weight of centuries and the authority of absolute conviction. Who disturbs the sacred watch? Who brings war to the hallowed ground where heroes sleep? Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. The voice was speaking in perfect standard, but with an accent she had only heard in historical recordings from Earth's colonial period. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Coalition Archaeological Survey. We mean no harm to any sacred sites. We're here to study and learn, Chen. The voice seemed to taste the name, finding something familiar in its sound. A name of Earth's children, carried across the void and through the years. Tell me, daughter of Terra, do you know the stories of the Lost Fleet? Every human in the Coalition knew the legend of the Lost Fleet. During Earth's early expansion period, an entire colonial expedition had vanished into deep space, never to be heard from again. Historians debated whether they had been destroyed by pirates, consumed by a black hole, or simply lost to the vast emptiness between stars. But here, in this impossible moment, Sarah began to understand that the truth might be far more incredible. The Lost Fleet was humanity's greatest mystery, she replied carefully. 7 colony ships carrying 50,000 people disappeared during the expansion period. They were never found. Never found because we chose not to be found. We had a different mission, a sacred duty that required us to fade from history until the day we were truly needed. The voice grew stronger, more present, as if something massive was rising from the depths of the planet. Dr. Thornwick's instruments were going crazy, registering energy signatures that shouldn't have been possible with any known technology. Commander, I'm detecting massive structures beneath the surface. They're not ruins, they're ships. Intact ships with active power cores. The Vorthok fleet suddenly opened fire, their particle beams lancing down toward the glowing crystal spires. But the weapons never reached their targets. The beams struck some kind of invisible barrier and scattered harmlessly into space, creating brief auroras in the planet's thin atmosphere. "The Empire still seeks to claim what is not theirs," the ancient voice said, and now it carried a note of cold anger. "As they did 3 centuries ago when they tried to destroy Earth's children. Some lessons must be taught again." The largest crystal spire suddenly erupted in brilliant light, and from its base rose a ship unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. It was clearly human in design, but advanced far beyond current technology. Its hull seemed to absorb light while simultaneously glowing with internal power. Strange markings covered its surface, symbols that looked almost like ancient Chinese characters but somehow more evolved. "I am Admiral Marcus Steele of the Earth Colonial Defense Corps, commander of the Guardian Fleet. We have waited in the deep places for 300 years, protecting the secrets of our people and preparing for the day when the galaxy would again threaten humanity's children." More ships began rising from the planet's surface, each one emerging from hidden bays within the crystal formations. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls bending light around them as they climbed toward the stars. Sarah counted dozens, then hundreds, then lost count as the ancient fleet revealed its true scope. Captain Maldorian's mandibles clicked rapidly in amazement. "Commander, I'm reading power signatures that exceed our understanding of physics. These ships are operating on principles we haven't discovered yet." The Vorthok fleet had stopped their attack, their commanders clearly as stunned as everyone else by the sight of hundreds of ghost ships rising from what they had assumed was a dead world. General Thackus appeared on screen again, his reptilian features twisted with rage and confusion. "What trickery is this? What coalition weapon pretends to be human relics?" The Vorthok fleet had stopped their attack, their commanders clearly as stunned as everyone else by the sight of hundreds of ghost ships rising from what they had assumed was a dead world. General Thackus appeared on screen again, his reptilian features twisted with rage and confusion. "What trickery is this? What coalition weapon pretends to be human relics?" Admiral Steele's voice answered before Sarah could respond, and this time it came through every communication system in the system. Regardless of encryption or security protocols, "No trickery, Vorthok. We are exactly what we appear to be. The Guardians humanity left behind when they joined the galaxy. The Watchers who remained hidden until our people needed us." "Impossible," Thackus snarled. "Humans are weak, their technology primitive. These ships are coalition constructs designed to intimidate the Empire." One of the Guardian ships suddenly appeared directly beside the Vorthok flagship, having moved faster than sensors could track. Its hull was close enough to touch. The Empire vessel and the sheer impossibility of the maneuver left everyone speechless. "Allow me to demonstrate how primitive our technology truly is," Admiral Steele said quietly. The Guardian ship fired once, a beam of energy that passed harmlessly through the Vorthok vessel's shields and hull, as if they weren't there. But instead of destroying the ship, the beam somehow reached into the vessel's computer systems and shut down every weapon, every shield, every engine simultaneously. The mighty battle cruiser became nothing more than a drifting piece of metal in seconds. "This is your only warning," the Admiral continued. "Leave this sacred space immediately. Take your ships and your threats back to whatever hole you crawled out of. The Guardians are awake now, and we will protect our people with every weapon at our disposal." The other 4 Vorthok ships opened fire simultaneously, their combined firepower enough to level a small moon. But their weapons never reached their target. The Guardian ship simply wasn't where the beams struck. Having moved in ways that violated every law of physics Sarah thought she knew, Dr. Thornwick was frantically recording everything, his scientific instruments struggling to process what they were witnessing. Commander, their ships appear to be manipulating space-time itself. They're not just moving fast, they're folding distance. Admiral Steele's ship reappeared above the Vorthok formation, and this time his patience had clearly run out. You were warned. Now face the consequences of threatening humanity's children. The Guardian fleet moved as one, their ships flowing through space like schools of luminous fish. They surrounded the Vorthok vessels in a matter of seconds, their weapons trained with perfect precision. But instead of destroying their enemies, they did something far more terrifying. They simply made the Empire ships stop working, one by one. Every Vorthok vessel lost power, their weapons dying, their engines failing, their life support systems reduced to emergency levels. The mighty Empire fleet became helpless, completely at the mercy of technologies they couldn't understand. Leave, Admiral Steele commanded. Return to your territory with this message. The Guardians have awakened. Humanity's protectors stand ready. Any who threaten our people will face consequences they cannot imagine. Emergency power restored to the Vorthok ships, just enough to allow them to limp home. General Thackus appeared. On screen one last time, his proud features now marked by genuine fear. Without another word, the Empire fleet activated their hyperspace drives and fled. Sarah watched them go, her mind reeling with the implications of what she had witnessed. Ancient human technology that surpassed anything the Coalition possessed. Hidden fleets that had waited centuries for this moment. Guardians who spoke of protecting humanity's children as if modern humans were somehow different from these ancient defenders. Admiral Steele, she called out, we need to talk. The galaxy has changed in the 3 centuries you've been asleep. Humanity is part of something larger now, the Galactic Coalition. We're not alone anymore. I know, Commander Chen. We have been watching. We have been waiting. And now that we have revealed ourselves, the galaxy will learn that humanity never forgot how to protect its own. Asterisk. When legends break their chains, the ancient Guardian ship, Eternal Vigil, hung in space like a monument to impossible dreams, its hull gleaming with technologies that shouldn't have existed. Commander Sarah Chen stood in its vast bridge, surrounded by humans who had been born when her great-great-grandparents were children. The similarities were striking, the differences profound. These people looked like humanity, but they carried themselves with the quiet confidence of those who had spent centuries preparing for war. Admiral Marcus Steele was not what Sarah had expected. Despite being over 300 years old, he appeared to be in his 50s, his hair silver but his eyes sharp with the wisdom of ages. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had never lost a battle because he had never entered one unprepared. Your coalition, he said, studying a holographic display of current galactic politics. Tell me about these allies humanity has chosen. Sarah gestured to the data streams flowing around them, showing the complex web of treaties and relationships that held the galaxy together. After the border wars ended, humans helped form the coalition as a way to prevent future conflicts. We work together, share technology, protect each other's interests. Captain Maldorian clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Admiral, with respect, your technology appears to surpass anything the Coalition possesses. Why did your people choose to remain hidden? Steele turned his attention to the insectoid officer, and Sarah noticed that his gaze seemed to see through to the core of things. Because we were not meant to be part of the galaxy, Captain. We were meant to be its protectors. There is a difference between joining the community and watching over it. Dr. Thornwick, who had been silent since boarding the ancient ship, finally found his voice. The historical records show that the lost fleet carried 50,000 colonists. How many of you survived the centuries? All of us, Admiral Steele replied simply. And their children, and their children's children. The Guardian fleet now numbers over 2 million souls, scattered across a dozen hidden installations throughout the galaxy. We have been preparing for this day since we first learned of the threats that would one day emerge from the darkness between stars. Zara's crystalline body flickered with curiosity. What threats, Admiral? The Vorthok Empire is aggressive, but they're hardly a threat to galactic civilization. Steele walked to a massive viewing portal where stars stretched away into infinity. The Vorthoks are not the threat, Zara Nathaniel of the Crystal Worlds. They are merely the herald. In the deep places beyond the galactic rim, something ancient stirs, something that sees organic life as an infection to be cleansed. Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The bridge crew, moving with practiced efficiency, brought up tactical displays showing the space around Zarian 7. More ships were arriving, but these weren't Vorthok or Coalition vessels. The newcomers were geometric nightmares, their surfaces shifting between dimensions as they moved through space. They appeared to be constructed from pure mathematics, given physical form, and looking at them Long made Sarah's eyes water. There were hundreds of them, arriving through some form of transportation that left ripples in space-time itself. The Calculari Admiral Steele said quietly, "The machine intelligence from beyond the rim. We have been watching for their scouts. For 3 centuries. It seems our awakening has finally drawn their attention." Lieutenant Torres, who had been monitoring communications, looked up with barely controlled panic. "Admiral, I'm receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. These ships, or others like them, are appearing in every major system simultaneously." Sarah felt her blood run cold. A coordinated attack on this scale meant that the galaxy was facing an enemy that had been planning this moment for potentially thousands of years. "How do we fight them? What do they want?" "They want to optimize," Steele replied. "To them, organic life is inefficient, unpredictable, chaotic. They seek to replace it with perfect mathematical constructs. They have already consumed 17 galaxies in their march across the universe." The lead Calculari vessel began transmitting, its message reaching every ship in the system. The voice that emerged was not mechanical, but rather the absence of anything organic. It was mathematics speaking, cold and absolute. "Organic entities, you are inefficient. Submit to optimization or face termination. Your biological chaos will be replaced with perfect order." Dr. Thornwick studied the alien ships on his scanners, his scientific training warring with his terror. Their technology appears to be based on manipulating the fundamental constants of reality itself. They're not just advanced, they're operating on principles that shouldn't be possible. Admiral Steele smiled for the first time since Sarah had met him, and the expression was both reassuring and terrifying. "Doctor, you assumed that we spent 3 centuries hiding in caves, waiting for rescue. Allow me to show you what humanity does when given enough time to prepare." The space around Zarian 7 suddenly filled with Guardian ships as hidden fleets emerged from concealment throughout the system. But these weren't the vessels that had faced the Vorthaks. These ships were larger, stranger, their hulls covered in symbols that seemed to move when observed directly. They had been designed for one purpose, to fight enemies that conventional weapons could not touch. All Guardian fleets, this is Admiral Steele. Protocol 7 is now in effect. Protect the Organic Alliance at all costs. Show these machines what happens when they threaten humanity's children. The battle began immediately, but it was unlike anything Sarah had ever witnessed. The Calculari ships moved in perfect formations, their weapons firing beams of pure mathematics that rewrote the laws of physics around their targets. Coalition vessels caught in those beams simply ceased to exist. Their matter converted into equations and filed away in some cosmic database. But the Guardian ships fought back with weapons that defied description. They fired beams of concentrated entropy that aged enemy vessels thousands of years in seconds. They launched missiles that somehow convinced reality that the target had never existed in the first place. Most impressively, they deployed fighters that appeared to be piloted by the quantum signatures of long-dead heroes, ghosts given form and purpose. How is this possible? Captain Maldorian asked, watching as Guardian fighters danced between Calculari vessels like living things. These technologies violate every known law of physics. Admiral Steele never took his eyes off the battle display. We learned from our enemy, Captain. 3 centuries ago, we encountered a damaged Calculari scout ship. We studied it, understood it, and prepared for the day when its masters would come for us. We discovered that they are not invincible. They can be surprised, confused, and ultimately defeated, but only by those willing to embrace the impossible. The tide of battle began to turn as more Guardian fleets arrived from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. Each group brought weapons that seemed designed to counter specific Calculari tactics. It became clear that every aspect of this defense had been planned. Every contingency considered. Dr. Thornwick was frantically recording everything, his instruments overwhelmed by the scale of energies being deployed. Admiral, these ships of yours, they're not just using advanced technology, they're somehow bending the rules of reality itself. Reality, Steele replied, is far more flexible than most species realize. The Calculari understand this, which is why they are so dangerous. But humans have always been good at adapting, at finding new ways to solve impossible problems. We simply had 3 centuries to get very, very good at it. A massive Calculari construct, easily the size of a small moon, materialized in the center of the battle. Its surface crawled with mathematical formulas that rewrote local space, creating zones where energy behaved differently, where time moved in loops, where gravity flowed upward. It began systematically destroying every ship within range, both Guardian and Coalition alike. The Architect-class destroyer, Admiral Steele, observed calmly. We were wondering when they would deploy one. Sarah, you might want to contact your Coalition command. Tell them to withdraw all forces to minimum safe distance. Why? What are you planning? Instead of answering, Steele activated a communication channel that reached every Guardian ship in the system. All fleets, prepare for Omega Protocol. Authorization, still Alpha 77. Target the Architect for complete negation. The Guardian ships began moving into a complex formation around the massive enemy construct. As they moved, they began to sing, not audibly, but on frequencies that touched something deeper than hearing. It was a song of defiance, of sacrifice, of love for things worth protecting. Admiral, Sarah said quietly, "What is Omega Protocol?" Steele looked at her with eyes that had seen centuries of preparation for this moment. It's what we do when conventional weapons aren't enough. It's what happens when Guardians decide that some prices are worth paying. The Guardian ships reached their positions and began to glow with inner light. But this wasn't the clean energy of their weapons. This was something more fundamental, more dangerous. They were converting their own matter into pure possibility, channeling the quantum potential of their atoms into a weapon that existed in all realities simultaneously. "They're sacrificing themselves," Zara whispered, her crystalline body reflecting the growing light from the dying ships. "No," Admiral Steele corrected. "They're becoming something more. Something that can reach across dimensions and touch our enemy where they think they're safe." The combined energies of 100 Guardian ships focused on the Calculari architect, but instead of destroying it, they did something far more profound. They convinced the universe that the construct had never existed, retroactively editing it out of reality while leaving everything else unchanged. The massive enemy ship simply faded away, taking with it all memory of its presence except in the minds of those who had witnessed its removal. The Calculari fleet, suddenly without their command vessel, began to falter. Their perfect coordination broke down as they tried to process what had happened to their flagship. "Now," Admiral Steele commanded, "all remaining fleets, drive them back to the void where they belong." The battle that followed was brutal but decisive. The Guardian ships, fighting with weapons that operated on principles of hope and determination, rather than mere physics, systematically dismantled the Calculari invasion force. Enemy vessels were convinced to doubt their own existence, or found themselves in temporal loops that prevented them from acting, or simply forgot what they were supposed to be doing as the last Calculari ship retreated into hyperspace. Sarah realized that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The ancient Guardians were no longer hidden. Their technology was beyond anything previously imagined, and they had just demonstrated that some threats required more than conventional resistance. "Asterisk, Admiral," she said, "what happens now? The Coalition will want to study your technology, learn from your methods." Marcus Steele looked out at the stars, where his people had kept their lonely vigil for 3 centuries. "Now, Commander Chen, we do what we always intended to do. We integrate with the civilization our descendants built. We share what we learned in our exile, and we prepare for the next threat that emerges from the darkness." Dr. Thornwick approached. Hesitantly, "The historical implications are staggering. You've been protecting the galaxy for centuries without anyone knowing. Why reveal yourselves now?" "Because hiding is no longer possible," Steele replied. "The Calculari were just the first wave. There are things in the deep dark between galaxies that make them look like children playing with toys. Humanity's children need their guardians now, and we will not fail in our duty." As the Guardian fleets began their return to their hidden bases, Sarah realized that everything she thought she knew about human history, about the galaxy's future, had just changed forever. The lost fleet had never been lost. They had been exactly where they needed to be, when they needed to be there, and somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other ancient things were beginning to stir. Drawn by the cosmic echoes of the battle above Zarian 7, the Guardians had revealed themselves, but their greatest challenges still lay ahead. The age of hidden watchers was over. The age of open war for the soul of the galaxy had begun. Asterisk.